One is more dismayed by what has happened to the FBI than my first guest tonight. James Kallstrom served 30 years with the Bureau. Kallstrom, former assistant director of the FBI, and he says the FBI has been ravaged by a lack of leadership, lack of discipline, corruption under the Obama Justice Department. Joining me now, Jim Kallstrom. Good to have you with us.
Good to be here, Lou.
Let's start with first this outrageous act. We learned there's surveillance of the president's attorney in the weeks leading up to that extraordinary raid against his home, his office, and hotel room or office. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's incredible. I look back at some history here, and back in the 80s and 90s, the saving and loan crisis, right? Over 1,000 SNLs, 1,000 plus SNLs went under.
Right.
You know, a lot of it was criminal there, right? Not one law firm in the United States was issued a search warrant in that incredible.
Right.
And here, this four-person law firm is the subject of this search warrant. Now, you know, it could be, I don't know the facts, Lou, but it takes a criminal predicate to get a Title III, under Title III, to get a wiretap, number one.
Right.
The media is reporting there was a wiretap. I find that that's probably unlikely.
Right.
I don't see where they could get the probable cause for that. But to execute a search warrant, they got to articulate a criminal act, a predicate. You know, this crime has taken place, and we want to. We've done everything, and now we need to search and get these records. Or if it's national security, there's a national security involvement. One of those two things. And I think time will tell whether or not any of those things really play out correctly.
We now are hearing a correction from the original report, which was at NBC News, that it was not surveillance in the form of a wiretap.
Oh, it was a pen register.
A pen register,
yeah.
Number,
sure.
Pen number registry. And, but even that is outside the bounds, it would seem, of the president's personal attorney.
You know, Lou, as you know better than I probably. I come from a different perspective, but from the very beginning of Donald Trump running for president, and then when it got clear that he was going to be the nominee, this conspiracy, I've called it a fifth column, I've called it a bunch of things,
right.
But there's no question that they were down for Trump. They don't want an outsider. They don't want, the hogs don't want their snouts pulled out of the food pub, right. the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce. They want cheap labor. They don't want to close the border. And meanwhile, the American middle class and lower class are just suffering under these inane policies of the Obama administration. And here's Donald Trump that comes along, and I tell you, in a year and a quarter or whatever he's been in, he's done more for this country than the last three presidents combined.
I say quite often on this broadcast, there has been no president since FDR who's done as much in as short an order.
Yeah.
And what he has accomplished in terms of the economy, foreign policy, the broad number of challenges, all of these establishment and these elite orthodoxies that you're referring to have got to be beside themselves, because he's doing something that no one has done before in the presidency in our lifetimes, and that is to walk into the Oval Office and actually fix problems, actually do what he's saying,
and
keep promises.
He's going to prevail. You know, I've known him for a long time, 43 years. You know, if he has a few off-color remarks or this or that, what's that got to do, the American people out there, with the fact that he's running the country the way it needs to be run? Yeah. And if I could, Lou, I know you don't need this, but a copy of the Declaration of Independence.
Thank you.
And the Constitution.
Yep.
And if I might just take a quick moment.
Absolutely.
I have to put my glasses
Anytime.
on. Article 2, Section 1. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America.
Period.
Exclamation point.
Yeah.
Period. And here we got these frivolous, idiotic questions that they want to ask our president. I mean, nonsensical. What do you think on this day? What did you think last Thursday? I mean, Mueller is just out of control. And the American people and the weak-kneed leadership of our Congress, I hate to say that, but they are. Yeah. They are the most ineffective, weak-kneed. You know, they're just so infected with that swamp that they won't back out. We got 30 or so courageous young people in the Congress that really want to do the right thing.
Yeah, and most of them are in the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah.
It's to me extraordinary that Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell don't have the courage or the integrity to stand up with this president and say, Robert Mueller is out of control. He is running an extra legal operation and has in fact formed a super authority over our constitutional republic that is not envisioned by our founders and certainly not by the Constitution of the United States.
And it's not funny, as you know, Lou. It's sad. It's very, very sad what's going on with these people. It's just outrageous. It really is. It's incredible. And Comey is just I mean, he's lost his mind. He's just he's become a pathological liar. He provided no leadership to the FBI, no discipline to the FBI, and that filth is down. The FBI is still a great organization. I guarantee it. You know, you get rid of those, I don't know what the number is, 10, 20. You get rid of those sycophants at the top and provide some leadership and some discipline, and the FBI will come right back, because that's what they crave. But that's not what's happening. And they're embarrassed by things like Paul Manafort. That raid into his home was outrageous. The FBI should never be involved. If I was the head of the FBI office, I would have refused to go on that raid and to do that at 4 o'clock in the morning if the reports are right.
Yes.
About his wife in bed in her nightgown and the children. They should be sued to the end of the law, those people involved in that thing. It's outrageous. And this thing with the lawyer it's not as obscene. I don't think they had machine guns or anything, but it's still way out of the paradigm of what normally happens, as I told you about the SNL.
Yeah, and going back to that crisis, the SNL crisis in the mid-'80s was the largest financial crisis in the country's history. The industry itself fell apart. And there were, as you point out, and I hadn't considered it, but there were no raids on law firms, and one could probably make a much better case.
They were big law firms. They didn't want to take on the big law firms. Let's take on this little law firm with this president that's trying to do the right thing, you know?
Yeah, the FBI itself, you do believe it's retrievable?
I think so. We need some leadership. Leadership's the key.
They're fighting the president of the United States.
They've promoted, Mueller and Comey over the years have promoted the wrong people without experience. You know, we need
people
agents
without
to
character.
run the FBI. We need investigators to run the FBI. We don't need another attorney.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know Chris Wray. Maybe he's a good guy. But we don't need another member of the gentry over there at
Chris
the
Wray
Justice
hasn't
Department.
proved a single thing, either within the FBI or to the president or to the American people. He has been stonewalling Congress and its oversight role, Jim. He is no better than Mueller or Comey or any of their
The Deputy Attorney General, I mean, what is he doing being the Deputy Attorney General? He signed one of the continuations of the FISA law, the FISA intercept. Can you imagine? You know, that thing full of all, you know, fictitious information, and he signs it.
Fraudulent.
And he's prancing around like the cock on the walk. You know, the arrogance, challenging the Congress. You know,
he won't be extorted.
You know, he won't be extorted. I mean, who is this guy? I mean, what is this?
Well, he's part of the deep state, and he thinks he's just cute as hell.
And where is Judge Sessions? A real good guy. I met him in my younger days. Yeah. But he must be locked up in the men's room or something. I don't know.
I don't know what's happened to him. I think it's one of the saddest stories I've ever seen.
How can
in
he
American
let this
politics.
guy do what he's doing?
Well, he, you know, you find out. There's an old saying, you know, if you want to find out who someone is, give them power.
Oh, without question.
We have found out who Jeff Sessions is.
And give him a lot of power, then you really find out.
Yeah.